Hello, welcome to my channel. I am a sketch artist and I'm here to show you how easy it is to draw. If you don't believe me, keep on watching. And if you like what you see, please make sure you like and subscribe because it helps me out a ton. So without further ado, let's get on with the show. Okay, so let's move on with the next part of the Wonder Woman sketch. If you did miss out on the first two parts, feel free to check out those videos on my channel. Bear in mind though that the quality isn't brilliant. It was my first attempt at live streaming and it didn't really go very well. So until I can sort out all the technical issues, I will be pre-recording my work, editing it and uploading it to YouTube that way, just to sort of guarantee the production quality of the video, so you guys can see in obviously greater detail. So this video is in 1K or 1080p. So we've gotten to the point where we've done most of the facial features here, the eyes being the most critical part. Let me just move this about here. Okay, that's better. So yes, we have started work on the face. We've done some basic shading here, and we've had a go at the lips. Now, the most difficult part of the face is going to be her nose. It's not so clearly defined, and I find with most pictures that you sketch, the nose is the most difficult. Well, for me anyway. I mean, a lot of people say it's the eyes, and a lot of people say it's the mouth. People tend to have a sort of a fear of approaching any of these facial features here. I will be going through at some point a guide on how to get started to this point, because it's not nearly as difficult as you think it is. It is a very simple process. A lot of people might say that it's cheating. I don't think so. I think it's a way of cutting corners. And that is basically to sort of trace the outline of the main aspects of the image. So the outline of the face, the critical part, which is the eyes, outline of the eye here, and that makes sure that you get the dimensions right. Now, a lot of times what I see with other people's works is that the eyes aren't quite right, and getting the eyes right is a critical part of the image, because if the eyes don't look right, then the image isn't really going to look right. And then obviously getting the dimensions of the nose, the mouth, is critical as well, obviously. So tracing the basic outline of the eyes, the nose and the mouth basically ensures that you can just crack on without having to worry about getting those right, so you don't have to spend hours and hours with a ruler and making sure the dimensions are correct. So we're going to continue our work here. Now, looking at the image, there are a few things that I want to sort out. And the shading of the nose and around the nose, this is what I'm going to be looking at for the most part of today. So let's start here. I'm going to get my rubber here. This is a great little tool, this here. It's obviously a motorized rubber. It allows me to, sorry, I've got something in my teeth. It allows you to get a better rubbing result like that. I mean, you could do it without pressing that button, obviously, but it does get the grit off the paper a lot better. So let's start then working on the nose, getting the nose right, getting the angle of the nose right. It is quite tricky, but I'm just going to get going here. Now, as I said, the eyes is perhaps the most critical part of the image, because if the eyes don't look right, then really the whole image isn't going to look right. Sometimes, as you can see here, we've got a white shine here. Most of the time you can not worry about that too much, because we'll add that in later. We're going to carry on giving it this basic shade. I'm wanting to get the basic dimensions of the nose right, and at the moment I'm just not happy. I'm not happy with it. It's a bit vague, obviously, and I want to get it right. So the nose goes into shadow here, the left side of the nose. So we're just going to put in our borderline for that. A trick to getting the shapes of things is in observation. Now you can sit and stare at a subject or an object for as long as you like, but if you're not able to replicate the lines here, then obviously it's no good. you need to be able to look at a specific shape. As you can see, I'm trying to get the curve, of the corner of her nose here right, and as it dips down, I'm trying to get that spot on this side of the image. Obviously being mindful of the distance between the bottom of her nose and the top of her lip. Get some shading in here, sort out the right side of her nose. Now, as I said, I'm not going to worry about the highlight of that nose here. I'm going to worry about that a bit later on. I want to get this done as quickly as I can and accurately as I can. I think this is one of those tasks for my smudger stick, so I'm going to be utilizing that, but I want to get the basic shade done first. Now, you're obviously having to be mindful of quite a few things when you're sketching. You have to be mindful of, as I said, the shape of things. You have to be mindful of the distance of that shape to other shapes, making sure that it is accurate, because tracing outlines of certain things is helpful, of course, and it does cut a lot of corners, but if you're not continuously mindful of the distances and measurements, you'll find yourself having to do a lot of rubbing out and starting again. Your image can look a hell of a lot different when you're a few inches away dealing with some sort of detail and you think that it looks good, and you don't bother to sit back and take an overall view of the image. You must do that as often as you can, because you'll be surprised how out of scale your recent work is. So you must always sit back, study your work quickly, and make sure you've got everything right. Now, I think at this point I'm going to utilize my smudge stick. Now, these smudge sticks here are very good. They've saved my life, but don't overuse them. There are times at which you can use them and not use them. You need to know you basically need to know when and when not to use them, because they can be a boon, but they can also be a massive ruiner for your image, especially if you don't know how to use them properly. So I'm going to sort of give you an example with this part of her image here, because it's very dark, as you can see. So we're going to just go through. You see the amount of difference that has already just by me lightly pressing down on it. I don't know whether you can see that. Yeah. So, as I said, you need to be able to know when and when not to use this smudge stick, because, as I said, it can be a massive help, and then it can also ruin your image if you're not careful. You need to be very careful. Now, there are different sizes that you can get. I have a big one, a small one, a medium-sized one. So what I need to do is I need to get the shadow above her nostril right. I need to get these lines, the shading of the other side of her nostril. That's coming out brilliantly. I'm liking that already. I'm going to switch to my medium-sized one, I think, here. He says. I want to deal with this upper side of her right nostril here. Sort of be a bit vague, if you like, with it. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to, in fact I won't use that, I'm going to use the bits that go in this. Now this one's quite dark, it's because I've used, it's been in my pencil tray and it's kind of collected a bit of crap, but I'm going to use the corner of it to get that highlight back in. If you make a mistake, like I have, don't panic. Just rub it out. And fix the detail. That's good. Add a bit of definition to the nostril entrance here. And let's redefine the other side of her nose now that we've done some shading. There we go. Right, so continuing on, I need to sit the nose into the image a bit better. That's okay, I think. Add some shade here. Now we're moving on to shading of the area around the lips. So as I said, always be mindful of the shading that you're doing. Stop often, take a look, make sure that you're getting the shading right. And above all, just be patient. It's not a race. This area might benefit from my smudge stick. But we'll see how it goes. I'm going to try and do it organically with my pencil. This area is very, very dark in comparison to everything else. Blending in the shading that we've done a moment ago with the nostrils, mixing it in to everything else. Okay, so that's all right for now. Moving back to the shading around the mouth. Being mindful of the shadowing of the chin there, if you can see. If you can see this line here coming out, very fine, very faint. But I want to get that in. And if things do look odd when you're working on them, don't worry, just carry on, don't be disheartened, just push on. Because I've had plenty of times where I've started a sketch, I've gotten to a certain point and I've realized maybe this isn't going to work out. But most of the time it is an illusion and things are going okay. You just need to perhaps fill in some more detail for it to look right, because maybe it doesn't look right due to the fact that things are incomplete, or maybe you're not really able to see the final state or the potential. So talking a little bit about shading now. When you're shading like how I am right now, what you want to make sure is this motion that I'm doing right now has to be fluid. It has to be like a rhythm. If there are any gaps, let me give you a short example here. If I'm shading like so, you keep the rhythm right and you move your hands slowly, there won't be many gaps. If I was to not worry or not bother with it and did something like that, that's a lot more difficult to blend. I mean, it kind of works, but it's not going to be as smooth and nice as if you did it this way. Because when you were shading, you were mindful not to leave any gaps. Okay? So right now I'm just sort of looking at various parts of the image, looking at the shading, making sure that I've got things okay. I mean, this area would probably benefit from more smudge stick work. So this, as you can see here, the corner of the eyes is very, very dark, and I want to get that right. I don't want to end up using like a 2B or a 4B. I rarely use different pencils. This is a HB2, which has a lot more of a broader range than a standard HB. I use these a lot. You can get them from all good art shops, not to mention places like Ryman's, etc., and WH Smith's, if like me you're in the UK. I don't know whether you get Ryman's or WH Smith's in other countries. I don't know. Please let me know. Okay. Let's just work on the shading of this eye for a moment. The line here is very dark, so I think I'm going to have to use the smudge stick on that. So let's move on. Admittedly, I'm always a bit nervous when I'm using the smudge stick because you can mess things up massively if you're not careful. The area under her eyes here, corners. It's not super dark as it is on her other eye. But it is quite dark in certain areas, so we need to make sure we get that right. Okay. Now you could spend a long time getting things 100% accurate, and in the sort of 4 or 5 years that I've been sketching, I've made it my mission to try and get things 100% accurate. But there is a limit, and it is down to how, obviously accurate you want to get things, versus time. If this, for instance, is a commission and your client has asked it to be as accurate as possible, then of course take the time to get things as accurately as you possibly can. Just going through now, looking after the forehead. There's a bit of shadow underneath this circlet that she has. I don't know what it's specifically called. But I always like to deal with those sorts of things first and then shade out. Rather than shading in, I always like to start at the borderline and shade out, remembering the rhythmic motions of my shading. Once you're happy, just go over lightly with your finger and move on. Let's do the other side. Now it does get quite dark on this side. There's some shading the top half of this area, some very deep shading. So I'm going to make sure that I captured that. You're always being mindful of the shape of whatever subject you're drawing. Now I keep saying this, but you have to be dynamically aware. For instance, just above the eye here, you know that because of the contour of the face, you know that it's not going to be as deep a shade as it is up here because of how foreheads are. But it's going to be a lot deeper as the forehead goes up. But it's also because of the hair. So if the hair is covering or in front of her face, as we can see here that it is, then you know that it's going to be very deep shade. Let's just finish it off. Okay. I am just making sure that I get the hairline right here before I move on. Okay, that's probably about right. So we're thinking about now the hair, the flow of the hair. And hair is a very it's a very interesting element of the face. It's very dynamic, obviously, as you know, and getting hair right it's not the easiest thing in the world. It's quite involved, so you need to make sure that you go with the basics first. What I mean by that is studying the hair flow of Gal Gadot here. Let's look at the right side first. Look at the main elements of the hair. So what I mean by that is the bits that stand out to you. Okay, so for instance, this piece that's going in front of her ear. This piece, which is coming up and covering her left sort of jawline there. The fact that this side of her hair is flowing back. Just study the flow lines and make sure you recreate those basic pieces. In your sketch to start off with. The hair piece that comes down here. As you can see, I've already started. Get that piece done. This piece, that piece that comes up here. Covers. Jawline. We're not going to worry about the rest of it. For now, at least. So as long you can see how I've done it here, you've got the basic pieces. And that's all you really need to sort of concern yourself with at this point. Now, be mindful of the parting, because there's always going to be some sort of parting with long hair. And with Gal Gadot's hair here, it's there. And there's always a point where the hair comes back down, so make sure you've got that. Again, you're literally just going through, making sure that you've got the main pieces in the image. It's a little bit more difficult to see what's going on this left side, which does give us a little bit of creative license to do what we want, fill in the gaps, so to speak. So what I like to do now is I like to go around certain areas of the hairline and darken them up a little bit. Get the borderline. Get the borderline right. So I'm just going to go through This is basically to just sort of establish the borderline so that I can happily continue shading the face without worrying too much about the hair. Also, as a reference to myself for where the hairline actually starts. So making it quite dark. I know that, you know, it's never really a sort of like a straight cut line. We'll sort all that out when we come to doing the fine detail. But I just want to get some areas of the hairline in and defined. Okay. And that basically means that we can finish off the top part of the forehead that's visible here. Now, I've decided that I'm going to be doing these videos in 1 hour or 2 hour lengths. So that does mean we are approaching, well, we're about 19 minutes away from our first hour here. So I want to try and get as much done as I can. So we're continuing our work on the hair borderline. I never really worry about ears too much. Ears are incredibly easy, and because they're incredibly easy, I tend to sort of neglect them a little bit. I leave them to the last sort of stage. I suppose I shouldn't really, but it's whatever style you prefer. Just getting in the basics of the hairline. So I'm aware that there's a massive deep shadow here, and the hairline that needs to come down here. Okay, that's a bit better. Now I'm going to shade this up a lot darker here so I know where this hair is starting, because this is the side of her hair which is not really defined in that there's no sort of real border. I'm just going to deepen this whole side up a little bit. As I said, I rarely go to different pencil types. Like, 2Bs and 4Bs or whatever. But with this sketch, I might have to and as I said, we'll be worrying about the finer details of her hairline another time. But we just want to get the basics in there. Don't worry about getting the finer side of the shading right. Just get the basics done. Just the basics. And that's really how you should work. Worry about getting the framework done, then get the basics laid down, and then start adding more and more detail. It's like having a blurry picture and then slowly and steadily bringing that blurry picture into sharp detail. I'm not going to commit and go full black everywhere like I have here. I'm just going to go full black in the areas where I know that is the borderline is quite sharp. If you find that you're not getting a good shading thing going, it's probably because your pencil is probably a bit worn out on one side, so turn it a little bit, try it again. The chances are that it'll work out perfectly. There we go, that's nice. I'm not even going to think about using the smudge stick on the hair at this stage. That'll be reserved for towards the end when I'm filling in all the details. Smudging. Now you'll notice that I've left out this whole bit here. This will be a topic for another video. I want to get the main bits done, specifically the hair, and finishing off the rest of the face, doing the neck, and then we'll be concerning ourselves with her actual armor, her arms, and the upper chest here. So as I said, it's always a good idea to sit back and take a look at your work. And study. So it's coming along okay. There are some things obviously that I want to make sure is better. There are some things that I want to work on still. I'm not entirely happy with this side of the eye. I'm okay with this side of the eye. What needs to happen is that it needs to sort of sit with the rest of the face better, in that the areas around her eye, and even the eye itself needs to kind of come down, needs to be more shaded. This side needs a bit more work. You can see the upper eyelid here, and even the shading of the eyelid needs a lot more work as well. I haven't really worried about doing any eyelash work yet. I've been quite vague. And of course another thing is the eyebrows. Now with the eyebrows, I always like to sort of be vague, throw them in quickly, and then worry about them at another stage. What else? I want to get the shading of this side of her face right, more so than it is now. I want to, I think, yeah. So doing this, sitting back, studying the work you've done so far is a massively great idea. Perhaps making a mental list of notes of things that you want to work on. So what I'm going to do in the last sort of 7 minutes or whatever that we have left for this video is I'm just going to do some touch-up work on certain aspects of the face. I'm going to redefine the face edge here. Bring it out, make it pop a little bit more. I need to kind of finish off the shading of her jawline. So as I said, you're always mindful of going too far. You don't want to go too far, you just want to do enough, check it, and then do a little bit more than just going all in, rather than just going all in, is what I meant. Because it's very hard to reverse anything that you've done. Well, I mean, it's not so easy. It's easier to sort of do things gently. So because of the hair coming up here, there is a slight shade. I'm just gonna bring that in a little bit more. Getting that chin line on the other side of her mouth defined, like that. It's very dark at the bottom of her lip here, so make sure you capture that effectively. This needs a little bit more depth, a bit more shade. This needs a lot more shade. I'm not going to worry about it too much at this stage. And then of course the important bit here is getting this deep shade established. It's a lot darker this side of her face. So I want to make sure that I've got that fairly accurate. Again, being mindful of the other side. The edges need a bit more shade so that they look more rounded. So as I mentioned before, when you're shading, the more sort of detail, if you like, the more accurate that you get the shading without going in and using your finger to blend, the better, because you don't want to be relying on your finger shading. So it obviously doesn't matter if we go and bleed into the across the sort of border. Okay, so that'll do. we can just sort of do a little bit of fine work here. Now this is a problem. This happens quite often, and it's a good way, I think, to sort of show you how I deal with situations like this. Now, if you do get that kind of thing where you have a blotch, really there are a number of different ways that you can solve it. One of the ways is that you get a big ass rubber, which I don't have, or we'll use this and dab. Now this doesn't always work out, but it's had some sort of effect here, if you can see that. Going in a circular motion here, and then using your pencil to sort of perhaps blend it in a little bit more. So as I said, if that happens, don't be disheartened. It's just the way it goes. Don't mess around with it too much, because you'll probably just make it worse. So in the last few minutes here, I'm just going to do the shading of the corner of her lip there. It has been bugging me a little bit. Sometimes it can lend to the final detail of the piece, so don't be too annoyed or disappointed that it's there and you can't get rid of it. As I said, it's just one of those things, and most of the time you can cover it up artistically, if you like. Okay, so we're going to leave it there for now. We haven't done a great amount. I've discussed shading, I've discussed getting the dimensions of the face right. We've done a little bit more sort of shadow work to her hair, as you can see here and here. So in the next lesson, we're going to be finishing off the face and the eyes, and we're going to be doing the hair as well, and see what else we can do, maybe the neck. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm not one of those people that will spam you with requests to subscribe to my channel, clicking the bell notification, whatever. But if you do like what you see and you want to see more, you can support me by subscribing, because it is a massive help for me. And if you're so inclined, please hit my Patreon page. please hit my Instagram page. I do post on there quite regularly with various sort of updates to my channel, as well as certain other opinions. So there we have it. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you very much.